Hi, and thanks for joining me. 2 years ago, I had a new calorifier fitted on the boat. The calorifier is a means of getting hot water, and I'll explain more about that in a moment. The reason I had a new one fitted was that the original one was in the engine bay and it was split, so it needed to be replaced. Having your hot water supply in the engine bay is not a very good idea, so it was decided the replacement would be put in the cupboard just behind me here. This is like my wardrobe on the boat. So I had a new calorifier fitted in this cupboard. It took up some space, but fortunately it's a rather deep cupboard, so it hasn't caused me any problems, and my shirts and things hang above it, so they're quite warm in the winter. It's quite nice. So how does a calorifier work? Well, on my boat it gives me three means of heating the hot water. Now, in a domestic system in a house, you may have what's known as an immersion heater system, which is a hot water cylinder with an immersion heater that fits into that, and that by electric can heat the water. That hot water cylinder may also be heated from your central heating system. The modern way tends to be to have a combination boiler, which is a slightly different concept in that you don't have a hot water cylinder. But I'm here to talk about hot water on the boat. And not just hot water, but the water supply. So I can heat water in my boat three different ways. The first way is by having or using an immersion heater, which is used with mains power. So when I'm in the marina and plugged into the shoreline, I can get mains power and I can run my immersion heater. It's a 1 kilowatt immersion heater. Now, a calorifier actually has tubes running around the middle of it, and these tubes are connected in two different ways. I'm not a technical person, so I'm going to explain it as best as I can. One tube is connected to the central heating system. The other tube is connected to the engine. This diagram shows a single coil in a typical hot water cylinder. A calorifier will have two coils, one to the engine and one to the central heating boiler. So there will be four pipes passing through the cylinder. So if the central heating is on, it will heat the hot water. If the engine is running, it will heat the hot water. And if the immersion heater is on, it will heat the hot water. So I have three different ways of getting hot water. The water supply on a boat is pumped. Now, originally, at the time I bought the boat, I would turn a tap on, be it at the basin or the sink. The pump would run and the water would come out the tap. But periodically, when there was no water running, the pump would just go bzz, perhaps every 2 or 3 hours go bzz, and I never really got to the bottom of that. That tends to indicate a leak somewhere, but I couldn't find any leaks. So after the new calorifier was fitted, I was still getting this occasional bzz, and I wanted to do something about it, and it was suggested that I have accumulators fitted, and I've got an accumulator on the hot supply and a separate one on the cold supply. Some boats, I think, only have one accumulator, but I have one on each supply chain, as it were. Now, the accumulator works by having an air bladder inside it, and it's pressurized. What the accumulator does is it allows you to run your tap or taps for a short while before the pump cuts in. So it is saving wear on your pump, which is a good thing. It also stops the pulsation that you can get in the pipes where they sort of knock a bit, or you know, you get that. I think you know what I mean. So having the accumulators fitted was a very good thing, and they get pumped up to a certain pressure. I've had the system now for about 2 years and I have never checked the pressure in the accumulators. And I made a check the other day. I noticed it was 0.45 bar. Now, I didn't know if that was right or wrong, but I did feel the time had come that I should be pumping the accumulators up. And Peter, another moorer here, very kindly gave me some advice. It all made good sense. I've done some research based on what he told me. So today I'm about to pump up my accumulators and I'm going to show you the process of doing that. Let's hope all goes well. The first thing I need to do is clear out some of the bits and pieces in this cupboard beneath me. So I'm going to do that now. Oh, it's heavy, that box. My snow coat. Right, that should give me some room to work now. So let me show you the accumulators and where they're positioned. By unscrewing these caps, I get to the Schrader valves underneath. So I can now check the pressure using my digital pressure gauge, and I'll switch it on and see how we go. I'm actually struggling to get a reading with this. I managed to get a reading on the bottom one and it seemed to be 0.2, whereas the other day it was 0.45, and I can't get a reading on the top one. Whether that means there's so little pressure left in it, I can't get a reading, I don't know. I've just tested my pressure gauge on the van and it's working fine, so the fault isn't with this. So I'm going to move on to the next stage, which is turning off the pump and draining the water from the taps. So now I've drained the taps, I'm going to reset the pressures. I've got one of these to do it with. I actually bought this to use with the van. The reason being that when I go to a normal place to pump my tyres up, I can't see what I'm doing, and very often I finish up taking air out of the tyres rather than putting it in, which is not a good thing at all. This is wonderful. I can go around each tyre individually and pump them up and it's done in moments. No messing around. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to set this to 0.8 bar. 0.8, that's where I've determined it should be set, which is about 3 pounds per inch lower than the cut-in. So I'll explain a little bit more about that in a moment. Let's see how I get on. I'm just taking out some clothes just to make it that little bit easier to get in there. That's better. I can see what I'm doing now. The cut in is the pressure at which the pump turns on. And that seems to have worked reasonably well. Take this off. That's at 0.75. I'll do the other one and then I'll think about pumping them back up to 0.8. At least it's working, which is good. But I've got them both pumped up now. The top one is leaking a bit, so I'm going to have to get a new valve to go in there. I have to make some inquiries about that because I'm not really sure whether I can just take it out and put it in. The pressure at the moment is equal, it's atmospheric pressure. That's what you do when you drain the water. It equalises the pressure. Whether it's safe at that point to take out the valve and put a new one in, I'm not too sure, but I'll make inquiries. The next stage is to turn the taps off, switch the pump back on, and then open the taps one at a time. So I'm going to do that now. I'm quite pleased with how this has worked out. It's the first time I've done it. Many thanks to Pete for his advice. I did give him a quick call when I had the problem, so his help was much appreciated. I will need to keep an eye on that top valve, but for the time being the pressure in the taps is much better. It had faded gradually over 2 years, and you get to a point and you don't really realise how bad it's got. So I'll monitor that and I will report a little bit further, give it a couple of days, see how I go, and let you know how it's all working out. I decided that having played around with the water, I should refill the water tank. Well, it's 2 days since I pumped up the accumulators. The pressure is holding up fine. I don't think there's any immediate need to change the valve. I was a little bit concerned about that, but I think if it had lost pressure I would be able to tell. What used to happen was that it would take about 30-35 seconds for the accumulators to repressurize, whereas now it's doing it in about 15 seconds. The pressure of the water is much better. The morning shower is more invigorating, which is good. So all seems to be fine. So I'm very pleased with how that's all worked out. So many thanks for watching. I hope you're all keeping safe and well. Look after yourselves, your friends and families. If you haven't yet done so, please do subscribe and click the little bell to receive notifications of future videos. Meanwhile, as ever, take the utmost care. Bye for now.